do you have comments on kind of the math of the day? The fact that Stephanie Gilmore went into the event more than 10,000 points behind. Yeah. So if it were a normal event or normal math for an event, even if she won an event, it's only worth 10,000 points. So she would not have accumulated enough points to win the season, but all of that is not relevant in this final competition. So do you have any thoughts on that, on the funky math?
Yeah, it's a weird one. I think I don't like the look of that. I mean, literally just pulling up the rankings right now, like Steph's number 1 in the world for this year, but she's almost 11,000 points behind. Like it's just wrong. Like it doesn't make any sense. I think within that, my thoughts around it are there's no question as far as like a legitimacy of a world title. They've surfed the format they've been given, and Steph just won in that format.
Everybody agreed to the rules.
Everybody agreed to the rules. This is the format. Like there's no question about that. But I do think that because surfing has so many variables to it, that we are so different from mainstream sports. The ocean changes constantly. There's so many, every playing field that we paddle out into is different than the next. It's different than being on a soccer field, on a football field, on a court playing basketball, where you can kind of have maybe these formats where everything's going to be the same, and so you can kind of play around with things this way. We feel like in surfing, because there's so much that changes within that and every spot's so different, I really love the idea of rewarding the surfer that's the most consistent through a season. And knowing the points difference and the format's just a weird one for me now to wrap my head around. Of like, okay, this is our sport moving forward. We've done this 2 years in a row. We have to be okay with it because it's what's happening. But it does just seem like something that's really strange. And I think the one argument that I've heard, and it's kind of what the longboard tour is doing at the moment, that could be like kind of a good shift to that, is where you have like the finals event is worth more points, but there's still points involved. And so there still is this, maybe somehow the opportunity to where that last place person could walk away in first, but it also still weighs heavily on that first place person because of points and all the work they put in through the entire year, actually having the highest advantage to walk away world champion, if that makes sense.
I've got another suggestion.
Okay.
You have to be in order to get access into finals day, you have to be mathematically in contention for a world title.
Okay.
So rather than mandating, we're going to have 5 people at finals day, it could be 3 or it could be 7.
Oh, interesting.
Because
that makes kind of sense with what I'm thinking. Because if there's a mathematical way where you could win the world title, like for Malibu this year for longboarding, there's going to be a bunch of surfers in the draw, but you've probably got, at least on the women's side, I guess on the men's and women's side, we've got different winners, so that makes sense. But you're going to have like 7 that are potentials for world title. Now the most likely is still going to be those 2 that are tied for first because they've got 5,000 points going into that event. But if they lose out early, those other surfers walk away higher placed. Their points, they could get the points back to win the world title.
Right.
Yeah. And so that makes sense. Like in a point scenario to have it as top 3 to top 7.
Yeah, because it's silly to throw out all the points entirely.
It's kind of weird.
So the points still need to have value, and whether you weight certain events differently, and maybe you should, maybe pipe should be worth more than El Salvador or something like that.
Okay.
But it seems ridiculous to throw the points out entirely. So I think that would be the easiest solve. I also understand if they want 5 for some specific reason, then maybe they have an argument there.
Yeah.
But I think that you need to mathematically have a shot at the title to be going for the title on the final event.
Yeah.
And there was an event 2 or 3 or 4 years ago on the men's side going into pipe when pipe was the final event of the season where, I think there were 7 or 8. It was like Jordy Smith in 7th or 8th had a shot if 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all lost and he won the event, or whatever. It was an outside shot, but he had a mathematical shot, So in that year, there would be 7 that compete in this format, you know, and other years it's just 2 people, and that's compelling also.
Yeah.
So I think it could be reworked moving forward.
Yeah. I definitely agree though. I think the points thing is, I think it's worth rewarding the surfers that have done so well in the year. And obviously putting them in that order, that hierarchy order, 1st to 5th going into it, last year it was like, oh yeah, okay, that clearly works, right?
That makes
the
sense.
2 winners won, like the gold jerseys won. And I think that kind of like made us all believe in the system. And then this year we're like, wait, what? It's completely different.
Going into it last year though, the criticism was, what if the first don't?
Exactly.
And then they did, and we're like, I guess we'll shut up. They know
totally.
what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
And then this year,
now it's like,
hey, my criticism from last year is
and
now
like
valid.
Italo could have won. Like had the judges liked those airs that he was pulling on that first section, and he was able to actually like pull enough through to beat the rail work of Felipe, like we could easily have seen him take away the world title this year. Yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah, I think it could be the whole thing can be reconsidered a little bit, and the WSL is done good at pivoting and adjusting and throwing out bad ideas and trying to incorporate new. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did.